Alright, in this video I'll be cleaning the throttle body in my 2012 Nissan Pathfinder. This doesn't go exactly as planned, but in the end I do end up cleaning it. I do have some garbage bags, definitely some shop towels. I got these Grippas black vinyl nitrile gloves because you don't want this on your hands. Obviously I've got the throttle body cleaner, which is a product by CRC. I've got my wife's travel toothbrush. I do not use Scotch-Brite pads. They're probably a little aggressive for the cleaning that's required here. I'm using a 10mm socket. I also have an 8mm socket, and those are pretty much the only two that you need. And then I've got a 5mm Allen or hex key. The other thing you might need is a pair of pliers if you decide you want to take the coolant lines off the throttle body. But if you just want to access the backside of this thing, you can actually just pull it forward a little bit and clean it. The other thing you might consider is getting a new gasket, as there is a gasket on the backside. So the first thing I'll do is take off this air ducting that connects from the throttle body to the air filter, and it's got 4 mechanical hose clamps. Really, you only need to take off 2 of those. I loosen up all 4. The other thing you need to do is remove the 2 10mm bolts up top to hold the rest of the air ducting in place, and then there's 2 10mm bolts on the engine cover as well. The only reason you need to remove this engine cover is because it's in the way of the air ducting. I'll put it in fast motion while I pop off the bolts, and once the 2 bolts are out, you can remove the engine cover. And then there's, like I said, 2 10mm bolts underneath the engine cover. Once those are out, you just have to loosen these 8mm bolts that are holding these mechanical hose clamps in place, and then once they're sufficiently loose, this whole piece should come off pretty easily. I found it was easier to remove it from the throttle body side. And then after that, remove it from the air filter side. Now there is a hose still on this piece, so if you wanted to remove it completely, you would have to take that hose off as well. It isn't really required because it just actually moves out of the way. One point to consider, you might want to take off the negative terminal on the battery before messing with the electrical components of the vehicle. And there is one electrical connector to remove off the throttle body. You can see it there. Like I said, there's also 2 coolant hose lines, and if you just drove the vehicle, it will be hot. So it is best to wait a little while. Now there's 4 bolts that hold the throttle body in place, and they are actually those 5mm hex bolts, and this is where everything goes very badly for me. Specifically on the last one, which is very unfortunate because it's the one that's in the most difficult place to get to. Basically, I get 3 of these off, no problem. And the 4th one, I destroy the hex head. It just falls apart on me and turns into a perfect circle. So I am not able to take the throttle body off at this time. And instead, I'm going to have to clean it another way. If it was any of the other bolts, it wouldn't be a big deal. But just because it's this one that's down in the bottom, I can get the vice grips on it, but I can't actually turn it just by the shape that it's in. So you can see the bottom right there, it's all turned into a circle. I will work on that later, but I do end up cleaning this thing. So you can see the throttle plate there, and I'm just going to hit it with the CRC cleaner up front, and I'll just clean it from the front side. I do get inside, but there is a bit of a trick to doing that. Now, if you do much research on this, you will find that you're not supposed to force that throttle plate open, because it could mess with the electrical components of your throttle body, and that could cause you to have to do a throttle body reset. The other thing you may hear a lot of is that you can turn the key to the on position and depress the accelerator or gas pedal. I did not find that that worked. If you turn it to on or even ACC, press the gas, nothing happens, the throttle plate stays in the exact same position. I'm not sure if that's the case with all Nissan Pathfinders, but it was the case with the one that I have. But anyway, getting back to how I clean this one. For this, I'm using the spray, and I'm going to use, like I said, a toothbrush. And you can see me holding the throttle plate in place so that I don't knock it out of alignment. So since the travel toothbrush broke, I went and got my wife's electric toothbrush. And in fact, because the bristles kind of get underneath the throttle plate a little bit, it actually agitates most of the junk out of there anyway. So it ends up turning out pretty well. If you do end up pushing the throttle plate in by accident and your engine's not running well, there is sort of a throttle body reset procedure that you can go through. I didn't have to do that because I just left the throttle plate in position and didn't mess around with it. So you can see the electrical harness is still plugged in. And what I have found through searching the internet is if you put your key into the on position, not the start position, and then turn it to off, the throttle body will open for about a half a second. So you can see I got a 10-year-old inside the vehicle, and basically I give him the thumbs up. He turns it from the on position to the off position, and then I just do a quick swipe with the toothbrush, and you can see it's pulling out all the slime there. It's not cleaning the edges of the plate very well, but it is cleaning it enough that it should be fine. My plan is once I have an opportunity to get to a scrapyard, I'll be able to find a Nissan Pathfinder and pull these 4 bolts off of it and bring them back and hopefully get that 1 bolt off and replace it with something new. And you can see that I also had him turn the vehicle from on to off position, so open it up and then sprayed the top, because you're just not going to be able to get in there with your toothbrush. One big point, do not stick your fingers in there if you're going to be doing this on to off. Have something again like a toothbrush, and a general rule to follow is never put your fingers where you wouldn't put a more sensitive part of your anatomy. I'm not sure the force to which this thing closes, but you would definitely not want to get your fingers stuck in there. So you can see even after 3 or 4 swipes with the toothbrush, it does pull out some black slime. Anyway, after about 10 swipes with the toothbrush, it looks pretty clean. It's not really pulling out that thick black slime, and it looks like that. So not everything I wanted it to be on this job. You can see that bottom right bolt completely destroyed there. I did try to use some bolt removal techniques that also failed a little bit, but I will revisit this and hopefully come back perhaps with a bolt extraction video and perhaps with a video on how to replace that gasket. But if you didn't want to take it off and you just want to do sort of a superficial cleaning, this could be a solution for you. To put everything back in place, obviously you need to put the hoses back for the air ducting and use the 8mm socket to tighten up the hose clamps again. Then take the 10mm bolts, put the 2 up top that hold the air ducting in place, and then take the engine cover, put the engine cover back on, and reinstall the 2 10mm bolts. And that's what it looks like when it's all back together. Obviously, just looks normal. So I'll go in and start it up. Full disclosure, for about 10 seconds, engine ran a little rough on startup. It does take a little bit of time for you to put all the ducting back in place and all the bolts and stuff, but perhaps that's not quite enough time for the cleaner to completely evaporate. But after about 10-15 seconds, everything calmed down and the RPMs dropped below 1000 RPMs, sort of where they should be at idle, and I didn't have to do any of the reset procedures. Hopefully someone finds this helpful. Not every job turns out perfectly. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.